Hello, this is Dr. Don Reagan here with Dr. Susan Appling. This is your movement mentorship moment. Really excited to have Dr. Appling with us. She has been a licensed physical therapist for 25 or so years. She has served in the APTA Tennessee at multiple levels. She's been awarded multiple awards and they all speak very highly of her. And then more recently, she was elected as vice president of APTA at the national level. Susan, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate the kindness on age. It's been like 35 years, but
Okay.
Who's counting, right?
Yeah, I'm not great at math, perhaps. So we'd love to hear you talk about your pathway of leadership and how you've served at multiple levels and now you're at the national level. What has that path been like?
Well, it's been a great ride. I can say that to start with, right? When I started out, well, I'll just tell you, I grew up in a home where my parents were involved in organizations. They were both vice presidents of the Arkansas JCs and JSETs the same year. My dad was president of his trade association. So I just thought that was pretty normal. And so I grew up through like student government and president of my student government in college. And then I got to PT school and I was tired, so I took a break. But I always knew I wanted to participate in leadership in the professional organization. And so when I graduated, I went to school at Arkansas, at the University of Central Arkansas. And then, but I grew up in Memphis and went to Christian Brothers University in Memphis. Well, I grew up in Arkansas, right across the river from Memphis. So, essentially I'm in a Memphis burb, but I knew I wanted to participate. So when I first came over to Tennessee, I knew the people who'd been my clinical instructors, but I didn't really know a lot of folks. The people I had known up to then were in Arkansas, in the Arkansas chapter when I was a student. And so, I went to meetings because that's what I was interested in. It's what you do, right? It's that professional obligation, but it's also an area of interest of mine. And at the time, so this is pre-internet, right? You got to remember that this is all pre-internet. This was in like 1987. And so they said people could go to this meeting. And so I went to this meeting. Well, let me step back. I ran for like district secretary my second year out of school because they needed somebody to do the job. And I went to all the meetings. So they said, why don't you run for this? Because you always go to the meetings. So that's what I did. Somebody asked me and I did. That's an important lesson. Somebody asked. That's always the first thing. And then I got invited to this leadership retreat, and it's like, I know who these people are, but I don't know anybody. And I felt like an outsider because I didn't go to school in Tennessee and I didn't really know anybody except people in my district, and my district person wasn't there. I was the only one from my district. And so it felt a little uncomfortable. People were nice, but it's that inclusion piece when you just don't know. But I persisted. APTA sent out this thing, if you want to get involved in a chapter, send your name in. So I sent it into APTA, and either it didn't get communicated back to the chapter or it got communicated, but nothing really happened with it. And so I kind of waited a little more. And then the next time, I did more and got involved. So I think I got involved because I joined and I went and I learned, right? In terms of the meetings and the participation. I went to our chapter meeting and did those things. But then somebody asked me to step into a leadership role at the district level. And then somebody said, have you ever thought about doing this? So I ran for a delegate position, and which was particularly daunting because I was running, I didn't run for several years when I wanted to because my boss was already in that position and I didn't want to run against my boss. So it's good probably early on not to run against your boss, right? Even if they're nice people. Eventually we did run against each other for something, but we're still really good friends. So somebody asked me, and that's how I got started. So I got started at the district, and then I got involved with the chapter. I was a delegate for a number of years, for about 4 years, and then I ran for chief delegate because that appealed to me. I think chief delegate is the best job at the chapter level because you're engaged in so many ways. You know what's going on nationally. You know what's going on in your chapter. Because in Tennessee, the chief delegate is also on the executive committee, which is an important role because as an executive committee member for the chapter, you're really intimately involved in all the leadership and the decisions and that, helping determine direction. And so that was really, I think, pivotal. So I actually served as chief delegate in Tennessee for 8 years. And by being involved in the House of Delegates as both a delegate and then as chief delegate, I continued to serve as delegate for about 4 years after that from the district, or actually an at-large position. But anyway, that's how you get to be involved nationally. Now, at the same time that I was involved in our chapter, I became early on, I set for my specialist exam. Back when I took it, it was in the early days. My number's like 507, and now they're like, I don't know, 18,000 or something. Well, not really that many, but there's a lot. I took my specialist exam, and you had to be out 5 years before you could apply. And then there was like a whole nother year that you had to wait. And depending on when you graduated, it really was 6 years. So 7 years out is about when I got my specialization. But that really opened up a lot of doors for me in leadership as well. Because once I became a board certified specialist, because there were only about 2,500 at the time, I got invited to be on this committee or to participate on that thing. And I got involved with the Academy of Orthopedic Physical Therapy, orthopedic section. I got invited to be on their program committee. I got invited to be an item writer for the specialist exam. So I was on the SACE before it was a SACE and when it became SACE, or the Specialization Academy of Content Experts. So, I got in that way and got involved with the specialization process. And then I became editor for the orthopedic section's orthopedic physical therapy practice magazine or publication. And we got indexed when I was editor, so I was doing my chapter stuff, but I was also doing my clinical stuff, which was orthopedics. And I started teaching about 5 years out of school is when I joined the faculty. And that really boosted my opportunities to participate because the university was really supportive of that, because it's good for the university too. And it's really good for students to see faculty engaged and to mentor and model engagement, because honestly, the profession is ours. It's yours, it's mine, it's our students, it's our professionals all the way across, right? It's our profession. And so that modeling that engagement and involvement, I think, is really important, because that's how we sustain the profession over time. That's how we all get better every day at every part of practice, because treating patients is only one part of practice. Being a clinic administrator is PT practice. Being an academician is PT practice. Being a researcher is PT practice. Being head of orthopedic surgery and hospital centers is PT practice. Even though you're a hospital administrator, you're still a PT. And we gotta, I think it's important for us to model those and recognize those things, because the fact of the matter is students now have so many opportunities that were not necessarily open to people who graduated when I did, because they're again, that a health systems administration. I don't know if anybody knows Carol Odo from Texas, but she was one of the early leaders, physical therapists who were in health system administration. She was an executive vice president, I think, down at Harris Health down in Texas, and as a PT. And that's PT practice. Even though she's not treating patients every day, it's still PT practice. So I've talked some about my journey, and I think the big points are that, one, I was interested and participated. 2, people asked me and I said yes. And 3, I looked for opportunities to move forward. I developed that national network through my involvement in the House of Delegates through the chapter and in my involvement with the section. And that's how I began to build my network of friends really across the country. So when it came time for me to run for APTA Board of Directors, because I knew that was one of my goals forever, even when I was in PT school, I knew that was one of my goals. When it came time for me to run, I had developed friendships with leaders from all over the country in physical therapy, from my different aspects of my career, because, as an academician, you're teaching and you're probably involved in some level of clinical practice and you're doing research. And so those are 3 different big audiences that you get engaged with. And now if you're involved with residency or fellowship, there's a big network of folks in that regard as well. So, volunteer, engage. When somebody asks, consider the opportunity, but say yes. And 3, look for those open doors. You don't always have to say yes, but the first time you kind of have to, right? Because otherwise people will skip over you the next time. So that's a little bit about it. Again, I think for students getting ready to graduate, for folks in their early years of their career, I think it's really helpful to find a mentor or several mentors that you can work with. Who's somebody that you click with or you connect with? I think it's good to have a mentor in your clinic where you are. I think it's good to connect with one of your faculty, whoever you connected with, and stay in touch with them. Because honestly, we're not scary people, and we like to stay in touch with our graduates. You know, it's fun. It kind of makes us feel like proud parents in a lot of ways as they excel. And so, you know, they do it because of us, but in spite of us, because they're good, or they wouldn't have gotten into PT school or PTA school, right? They got to know they got to be good people to start with. So I think a worksite mentor, connecting with your academician, having a personal mentor, personal growth, I think is really important. There are lots of ways people find that. There might be leadership training in their community. They might participate in Rotary or the Chamber of Commerce locally. They might be involved in leadership through their faith-based organization. You know, there's lots of ways to demonstrate leadership. And I think you build those skills and no matter what environment you're in, and you just integrate it over time. So finding mentors in different places. Another thing about mentors, because I know your program has mentors and mentees, I read something recently on the Book of Face, and I think I reposted it actually on Facebook, and it says, if you don't have a mentor under age 35, you're doing something wrong. Right. It might have even said 25. I can't remember now. So remember to still connect with people younger than you too, just to kind of get some feedback. That's hard to do when you're right in school and just out of school. But when you're just out of school, it's still getting feedback from those students. Right. And then when you've been out a little while, it's that early career professional, because we think we know, but times change and you're not always in tune anymore. And so I think having that person is really helpful.
Susan, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your journey with us. I think you said a lot that is of great value for our program. Thank you very much.
Can I add one more thing?
Sure.
So if you're looking for ways to engage, obviously you can reach out to the chapter, but if you go to engage@apta.org or engage.apta.org, that's the place where you can build a profile so that when opportunities come up to volunteer, your profile is there and you can choose something you want to participate in. Tennessee, APTA Tennessee has opportunities on that Engage website. APTA National has opportunities. Many of the sections and academies have opportunities there. So it's kind of a one-stop shop. So while you're a student, if you're a new grad, early career professional, go build your profile. Go to engage.apta.org and build your profile, because your chapter has access to that. And it gives you lots of ways to find where you can volunteer. There are micro volunteer opportunities where it's a one-off 2 hours, or it's 2 hours a month or 2 hours a week. There are lots of different kind of opportunities that are there. So jump in the water. It's good and warm, and there's lots of room, and we need you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.